tonight's guest, I'm delighted to be joined by an absolute legend of the track and field, a five-time Olympic medalist, a 12-time world champion medalist, 2004 Olympic gold medalist in the 100 meters in Athens, a two-time world champion in the 100 meters in 2005 and 2017, and a 2005 world champion in the 200 meters, and ranks fifth fifth on the list in the all-time in the 100 meters in 9.74 seconds. Justin, I suppose this Olympics in Tokyo, it's towards the, what I would say, towards the latter stages of your career. It's one that you have been in the cycle now since after Rio, since 2016, 4 years of hard work, sweat, preparation, dedication. And then I suppose in the last 2 years, we have, since last March, your whole world has been rocked by everything that has gone on, all 3.5 years of preparation for this Olympics. What has that been like, both mentally and psychologically for you?
I know last year for me, it was very surreal, for the fact that, listening and to the Olympics is going to be canceled or postponed, should I say, and pushed back a year. It was a whirlwind because, for one, we were taken away from all our tracks and gyms. So we had to train like in very unorthodox situations and patches of grass here and there. But, it really didn't hit me until this year that, with everything still going on and it prolonging and new variants coming out, that the likelihood that it may not even happen, period, is really looming over us.
And as a elite sort of a professional as well, Justin, and I know, Justin, you're 38 years now, and I suppose this for you, I'm not putting the curse of fate on you, but this was probably for you your most, I'd say your not your last Olympics, I don't want to say that, but it was more than likely the Olympics where you were really sort of gunning for in terms of reaching your peak. I suppose the 38, you probably another 4 years would have been an extremely difficult feat to achieve it.
You can definitely say this was definitely going to be my last Olympics. I was looking to go a little bit beyond it, maybe hopefully the World Championships in 2022, in Eugene. But, I haven't really digested the fact that, this Olympics, which would be my last Olympics, may not happen. I just been really kind of zoned in on getting ready for whatever happens, meaning like staying sharp, staying active, training like it is a normal season to come, and just preparing for all of that.
Yeah, and Justin, you mentioned that training, and I suppose elite athletes, they need to be pushed by sort of competition and sort of stuff in terms of heats, in terms of warm-up sort of events across the World Championship track that lead up to the sort of Olympics, even sort of training partners to compete against, to sort of push to feel that sort of competition. With COVID, and I suppose with social distancing, I suppose that makes that nearly next to impossible.
It does, for the simple because you don't realize that our sport is close contact at all times. I mean, look how close you are when you line up against other opponents. You're almost shoulder to shoulder with them. So it's going to be a situation where we have to figure out how to get around that and cope with it and make it something that's going to be normal.
And Justin, in terms of that, in terms of knowing where you are and trying to gauge where you are in terms of previous years and where your competition is at as well, is it really, at this stage, you just have to ignore the competition, because there's no way of finding out what levels they are at, and just hope for yourself that you probably are at a higher level than you were in 2017 when you won the World Championship, and nearing those sort of times, and sort of is that the only sort of guide you can go on? Because I imagine it's next to near impossible to know what anyone else is doing at the moment or how they're faring.
Well, the only thing I really use in the past years of getting ready for competition and getting ready for championships is believe that every person that you're going to compete against is ready to PR. They're ready to give their personal best. They're ready to go out there and be on top of that podium. So that's how I look at it. I look at all the guys. Yeah, I mean, last year was a year where I was thinking that no one's able to train, no one's able to travel. And come to find out, even when the season came along, there were actually athletes who were running very well, with having to be quarantined through this whole pandemic. So it gave me an understanding that this year, no matter what's going on, I need to train at a level where I'm going to compete at the Olympic trials and the Olympics. So by any means necessary, I have to get ready.
Yeah, and I just in terms of those sort of US trials as well, because of everything in terms of COVID and that, there are going to be, I presume, shocks and surprises in terms of people that you would expect to make the US team or in certain areas not making it, and because of probably lack of preparation or other people's preparation sort of being better as well. So how do you sort of gauge and protect yourselves? Because it's all well about having the Olympic dream as sort of such, but the US sort of trials is where you earn your corn in terms of booking that ticket in terms of the Olympics.
For me, it's all really about how bad do you want it. You know, um, are you going to be ready for the moment, which is making the Olympic team? So before then, you can't use being locked down in a pandemic to be able to take away your moment that you've trained and worked so hard for, and even that you dreamed as a kid to have.
Hmm. And I suppose just in terms of nutrition, sort of hygiene, sort of sleep, in terms of keeping your body at the right sort of mass and sort of density, which is very important for a sprinter. How has that been like in terms of a lockdown, where sort of normalities is sort of such have been taken away in sort of gyms, and do you have your own sort of personal sort of workout area and sort of convenience like that where you can monitor and gauge that?
Yeah, we've had the opportunity to be able to, as a training group, to work out in the gym that's closed off to public or other athletes at certain points of time. So we have a window where we work at. We constantly have a cleaning solution and rags that we wipe down all material with. We wear a mask while we're running and doing intervals. We make sure we have a lane in between us. So we're taking all the precaution necessary needed to be able to prevent anybody on our team contracting COVID. And we've done normal testing as well.
And I suppose, Justin, you're an elite sort of athlete as such. You have real aspirations of not medaling at the Olympics, but being on the top sort of step of the podium as well. In terms of that sort of society and norms as well, do you have to sort of cocoon yourself away from humanity and society at the moment for the fear that obviously such COVID, like if you got it in terms of the weakening of the body and the system for an athlete, you could have it in your body for 6 or 7 months afterwards. And that could obviously affect your performance. It could knock maybe two, 3 or 4 10,000s of seconds off a run, which could be absolutely crucial.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I mean, you can't avoid this pandemic. You can't avoid being around people, especially when you're training and you're trying to be an elite athlete. You're going to be encountering people. It's just about being around people who are very like-minded and have the same to lose as you do. So other athletes are not going to want to put themselves in danger and harm, and anyone that they train with as well. So you have to make sure that the people you're around aren't the people who are going out and partying and socializing with no mask on and out in public and doing all these crazy things, because that can, hinder your career. Even though you're asleep at home, with your family, you get up and you go to practice and you go around people who are not taking the same precautions, and now it puts you in danger.
Yeah, and I suppose just in terms of clarity from, I suppose Tokyo and the Olympics are probably still putting a face in terms of they're saying it's going ahead no matter what, and I suppose you have to take them at their sort of word at for the moment. And I suppose in the last year they said everything was fine, and in the minute they realized that it wouldn't be going ahead, it was pure anarchy over there in terms of what they have. So in terms of that, you try and sort of distance yourself in terms of news, whether it's going ahead or not going ahead, because if you get that into your mind, it's sort of tall, I suppose it can sort of play havoc with your sort of thoughts.
Exactly. You know, you can't sit there and read the ticker every day and every moment waiting for a decision that's going to be brought down by the IOC or the USOC or even Japan itself about what the Olympics is going to happen. You just have to be able to be ready for if it does or doesn't, you know, and you got to train because that's what you're here for. Their job is to train, and that's what I'm doing. And to be honest, I think that we're in such an unorthodox time and period of our life that we need to approach it in a very unorthodox way. I don't think there's any reason why, you know, we can't have multiple venues around the world for the Olympics and start a bubble system like how the NBA did for each sport. You know, every sport really takes care of themselves and they want to be able to have the best ability for their athletes because they know what their athletes are training for. And I think that we already have world championships, just like swimming has world championships, just like gymnastics has world championships and so on. So I really think that if these different sports take the time to create a bubble for their own sport, I think that we can pull this off.
So what you're saying, Justin, in terms of they maybe the short distance runners, 100 meters, the 200 meters, the 400 meters, and maybe the 800 meters in one sort of bubble, and then maybe the 1500 meters and the more 5,000 meters you're saying in a different location altogether.
Exactly.
And Justin, in terms of the Olympics as well, I'm just sort of looking at saying in terms of young athletes, say the likes of Christian Coleman, Noah Lyons, who probably have another 2 or 3 Olympics after this sort of Olympics as well. And I know obviously they'd be devastated as well if it doesn't go ahead. But for you, I suppose this sort of situation, I suppose you're really sort of praying, I suppose, in terms of that hope and belief that it goes ahead, just because of the stage of your career. If you were 23 or 24, you would probably say, well, I can see the current situation and sort of stuff like that. And listen, put it aside and I'll go again in 4 years' time. But I suppose with the way the situation is for you, Justin, is that it's do or die in terms of this Olympics. It's everything on the line for you.
I don't look at it as a stressful moment like that. I think that I've had that moment before when I thought about my retirement and like, what am I going to do next? When's going to be my last year? And that's the kind of thing that kind of plagued my mind for a whole season. And I think that was mainly in like 18 because I really had to think about where am I going to go next? And then I had to kind of clear that from my mind and refocus for 2019. And I did really well in 2019 coming off an injury. And 2020 obviously was, you know, a flop for everybody. But if I think about, you know, what's to come, then I'm not going to be totally focused on what is the here and now. And I have to focus on the here and now, and whatever's to come, just be prepared and ready for it.
And I suppose, Justin, we see an awful lot of sports in terms of soccer playing behind closed doors with no crowds, in terms of basketball, no crowds, American football, no crowds, sort as well. In terms of a sprinter, in terms of that sort of lining up in Olympics in a sort of semi-final or a final, 100, it's a showcase, the 100 meters, and so is the 200 meters. Well, especially 100 meters, that is the showcase of the Olympics for most people. You probably have 100,000 people packed into a stadium, sort of roaring you on. You can sort of feed off that sort of crowd. You can feed off that adrenaline. How is it going to be sort of surreal, or is it going to feel how do you practice, how do you get into that mindset where you're going to be running against guys that you probably wouldn't have been able to hear them breathe on a track maybe in other times, but now there's going to be no one but except for 8 guys lining up on that to contest the semi-final or final? How do you sort of go to a mind? Do you sort of blank out and pretend there's a crowd there, or what do you do?
Jim, to be honest, right now I have no idea. This is something I've never really been prepared for. I think the closest thing is going to feel like it is practice or a time trial in a way, in some instances. So for me, it's just to be ready physically and race strategy ready, and then mentally make that shift to where if I'm a showman, which I am, I energy of the crowd. And if there's not a crowd there, then I have to find a way to draw off that energy and high level like I normally would.
And I suppose, Justin, lastly, before I let you go, in terms of the Olympic body, in terms of the sport, in terms of Tokyo as well, do you sort of feel that you've been kept as athletes, as top athletes, as performers? Do you think you've been kept in the loop all the way through the procedure? Do you think they're doing everything their power to notify you? Do you feel that you're being looked after in this situation, that you're getting the right guidance in terms of what's around the corner, that you're sort of kept in the loop? Or do you want, as a professional athlete, as an elite, do you want more assistance, more reassurance? And if the Olympics didn't go ahead, God knows, can you sort of see, could you find peace with that if it didn't go ahead?
Well, I mean, I think too much news would be bad because it's going to take your focus away from what is in front of you, and you're not going to train to the full extent that you need to. So I think that if anything, they need to be able to come up with an alternate plan if possible. You know what I mean? To be able to say, hey guys, if we can't have a traditional Olympics with less crowds or no crowds, period, and we got to find a different way to do it, then this is A, B, C, D. These are the plans that we're looking to do. You know, I think that would give a lot more security and a lot more comfort to athletes, especially myself, to know what's in front of us. I'll have to be okay with it. You know, to be honest, if there's not going to be Olympics, what can I do? I've gotten this far in my career at the age I am now. I'm still performing and practicing with younger athletes, and I'm still right there with them and sometimes in front of them. So, you know, I'm not looking at, I always told myself I'm never running at 40, but it looks like I'll be running at 40. So I have to come to terms with that first before I come to terms with anything else.
On that note, Justin, stay safe, and hopefully, please God, we'll all get to see the Olympics on our TV screens during the late August, and we'll get to see you competing in Tokyo or wherever that may be. But Justin, thanks for giving us the time to talk about the mindset of a professional athlete in these worrying times in terms of the Olympics. Obviously, it's a 4-year sort of cycle. So much goes into that sort of a journey. And thanks for sharing your thoughts about that cycle. And for the moment, Justin, stay safe, and hopefully, please God, you'll have a Olympics memories to bow out, not to bow out with, as you said, but to feel proud of in terms of when this pandemic is over. Cheers, Justin.
Thank you. I want to give a warm hello to everyone there in Ireland. Thank you for always supporting. Thank you always for giving so much love and respect to the sport, and showing so much grit through your tradition and through your athletes. And also give a shout out to Cork, one of my favorite places to go. Thank you.
Cheers, Justin. Take care, buddy.
Cheers.